After being a corporate slave in Shanghai long enough, I finally quit and returned to my hometown. The three-wheeled motorcycle rattled like a sieve. I leaned out the window to see azure sea, salty wind, and all my exhaustion swept away. 5 years of squeezing onto subways, rushing for elevators, grabbing takeout, even breathing timed by the second. This time, I'm really back. The cart stopped under a wooden sign at the village entrance, White Wave Village. The fine sand was so soft it sank underfoot, and coconut trees tilted crookedly, casting shade. An undeveloped fishing village, pure and authentic. Phew. I jumped off the cart and took a deep breath. The smell of freshly caught fish and shrimp, the scent of mudflats bubbling at high tide, the smell on my pant legs when I chased crabs barefoot as a kid. After being cooped up in concrete and steel for too long, that breath of sea air cleared my chest instantly. I, Yang, am finally back. Pulling my suitcase, I walked forward with a rumble. My parents went to sea 7 years ago and never returned. That storm swallowed their fishing boat. Since then, I took on my brother's burden to support my little sister Xiaoyu's education. She's in college in Sanya. She doesn't even know I'm back in the village. I'll surprise her on the weekend. Arriving at home, a 3-story white building right by the sea, with a second-floor terrace that opens to the entire ocean. The roses, jasmine, and hydrangeas in the yard bloomed vibrantly, and the grapevines had just sprouted new shoots. That girl Xiaoyu tends the flowers even more carefully than Mom did back then. I put down my suitcase and turned into the utility room. I dug out 3 dusty fishing rods. The rubber on the handles was peeling, and the reels were rusty. I bought these with my saved allowance when I was 15 or 16. Back then, I often went with Xiang and Erpang to the rocky shoals to catch groupers, squatting for half a day, munching on cold steamed buns, and laughing our heads off. I wiped the rod handles with my sleeve, weighed them in my hand, like greeting an old friend. Turning into the kitchen, I opened a red cloth bag, 2 gene of lively small mixed fish, picked from the town fish market. I was about to test the palm-sized silver box in my pocket. The manual said it could activate marine life signals, increasing success rate by 300%. This thing called Fish Attractor was a sign-in reward from the Super Sea King system. That's right, I'm bound to a system. That day, while pulling an all-nighter editing a PPT in a Shanghai office building, my phone suddenly flashed a red notification. I rubbed my eyes and stared for 3 seconds, my coffee already cold. After reading the instructions for 3 days, I finally figured it out. This system does only one thing: check in. Each time, it randomly rewards something good related to the sea, fish, or fishing. That night, I checked in for the first time. With a ding, a milky white bottle appeared in my palm, labeled Fish Attractor. Fish Attractor. Add 2 to 5 drops to half a bucket of water. Soak bait for 10 minutes. Fish bite enthusiasm increased tenfold. This system made me submit my resignation on the spot. I'd wanted to escape for a long time. Subways packed like sardine cans, rent rising faster than wages, working overtime on revisions until I doubted life. Now that I have a golden finger, why stay stuck in a cubicle? I had to return to the fishing village. In 2 days, I finished resignation, moved out, booked a ticket, and flew back that night. In the kitchen, I took out the small white bottle. It had a frosted texture, about the size of a yogurt drink. I slapped the mixed fish down, cut them into pieces, unscrewed the bottle cap, and dripped 3 drops into a half-full bucket. The liquid was thick like yogurt and dissolved instantly in water. I tossed the fish pieces in, shook it a few times, and grinned. Let's see which fish bites first tonight. Grabbing the 3 rods and the bucket, I sprinted toward the beach. In less than 10 minutes, I turned into that rocky shoal. I could find it with my eyes closed, the place where I used to crush waves barefoot and pry between rocks for crabs as a kid. Once, I used an iron hook to dig between 2 rocks and pulled out a big green-shelled crab weighing 2 jin and 8 liang. Sold for 40 yuan, and the whole family ate well for 3 days. Further ahead, a huge black-brown rock shaped like a turtle shell stood firmly at the tide line. My old fishing spot since childhood. Under the rock, currents surged, crevices were deep, and groupers, eels, and sea bream loved to hide. I set up the rods, baited the hooks, and cast the lines, all in one smooth motion. The 3 rods landed at staggered spots. My technique is natural as eating and drinking. I sat on a folding stool, staring at the floats, as still as a rock. 3 minutes passed. The sea was calm as blue glass, the floats motionless. No movement after 20 minutes? Totally normal. I've carved the word wait into my bones. Another 3 minutes, still no movement. Just as I reached to check the bait, some small fish might quietly steal the bait without the float moving. My hand had just touched the first rod. Suddenly, the tip of the left rod jerked sharply. The float plunged into the water with a plop, then popped up violently, shaking wildly. Huh, something's happening. I stood up, lifted the rod, and tightened the line in one fluid motion. The fishing line screeched taut, the rod bending in a beautiful arc. From the feel, it was at least 2 or 3 gene. Sea fish are strong. Even a 1 gene fish will tug like a tug of war. If the line is thin or your hand is weak, a flick of the tail and it's off the hook or the line snaps. I didn't fight hard. I let out line, angled the rod, and circled it, wearing it out. After 5 or 6 minutes, the rod's weight lightened, and a white belly turned up, floating slowly to the surface. With a flick of my wrist, splash, a large blue-gray fish with stripes burst out of the water. Whoa, it's a green grouper. And this big. Catching a grouper on the first cast is like winning the lottery. Wild green grouper isn't the most expensive, but this one looked over 3 gene, at least 200 per gene, easily 600 yuan. 600 on one cast? This isn't fishing, it's running a money printer. I reached out the landing net, scooped, lifted, neat and quick. I unhooked the fish and put it in the net, sinking it into the sea. The fish splashed a couple of times, buoyed by the seawater, lively and kicking. Just as I tied the net bag and was about to get new bait, bang. The float on the second rod went crazy again. Hey, right on time. I reeled in, controlled the rod, and played the fish, smooth as silk. A shiny thick black sea bream slapped onto the shore, its scales glinting silver in the sunset. Black sea bream isn't as expensive as grouper, but it's 60 per gene. This one over 2 gene would sell for 120. I scooped it up with the net and bagged it. For the next half hour, I was so busy my wrists nearly gave out. Over 20 fish bit in a row, each one sizable. Green grouper, black sea bream, red snapper, yellow fin snapper, they came in turns. Almost every cast caught a fish, each one heavy, pulling my arms sore. Fishing at the seaside these days isn't easy. Murky water, fewer fish, many boats and nets. An ordinary person would be lucky to catch 3 or 4 in an hour. In half an hour, my fish basket was almost overflowing. The answer was obvious. That bottle of fish attractor was brutally effective, luring all the fish from hundreds of meters around. But the attractant couldn't last forever. After catching over 20 big ones, the fish got noticeably smaller and scarcer, and the bite frequency dropped. The float barely moved, as if the fish were all yawning. I decisively packed up. Enough, time to go. Today was just to verify if the fish attractor worked. The answer exceeded expectations. I caught enough fish and got my conclusion. Any more would be wasting time. Tomorrow, I'll buy a second-hand fishing boat, trawl net, longline hooks, freezer, all the gear. The Super Sea King system is meant for me to cast lines and nets freely, counting money under the sun. I gladly accept the challenge. As I packed the last rod, the sun slid to the horizon, casting golden red light across the sea, shattering into sparkling ripples. Carrying the full fish basket and a tackle box on my back, I walked back over the warm sand. Just as I reached the old pier near the dock, a joyful shout came from behind. Holy crap, Brother Yang, when did you get back? I turned to see a young man with yellow hair grinning and running toward me. Huh, Lang, is that really you? Yi Hai Lang, my closest childhood friend from home. We used to catch shrimp in the river naked, climb trees for bird eggs, and sneak pick grandma's bananas next door. After I left for school, we saw less of each other. This guy has been sporting a yellow mop since middle school, and over a decade later, his hair is still yellow, his temper still hot, and his taste hasn't improved. Most young people in the fishing village go to the city for work, but Lang was called back to help his dad with the yellow croaker farming pens, so he stayed. Brother Yang, why did you come back without a word? You should have told me. I'd have ridden my motorcycle to the pier to pick you up. He rushed over in big strides and gave me a bear hug. Hey, let go, let go? You reek of sweat. Don't stink up my freshly washed t-shirt. I complained, but I didn't push him away. Haha, stop messing around. Seriously, why did you suddenly come back? Taking leave to relax? Relax? I quit my job. Huh, quit. He was stunned. Weren't you doing well at that big company in the big city? Your annual salary could buy a car. So what if the salary is high? I shrugged. Working overtime until dawn every day, medical checkup report full of red flags. Rent and utilities are suffocating. So I just quit, came back to enjoy the sea breeze, listen to the waves, count the stars. Isn't that nice? Unbelievable. You really act on a whim. He clicked his tongue. Planning to stay for 10 days or half a month. More than that. I winked. I'm not leaving. What? Really not leaving? His eyes widened. A top university graduate, holed up in this small fishing village where packages take a week to arrive. What for? For free air, plenty of seawater, and sleeping without an alarm clock. Are you serious? What are you planning to do? Become the village radio announcer? Radio announcer my ass. I laughed out loud. My ancestors cast nets and fished for generations, so I'm coming back to the family business, becoming a fisherman. Huh, a fisherman? Catching fish. His face was full of disbelief. The big city has high salaries, subways, internet-famous coffee shops. Isn't that better than beachcombing and drying fish? Better? I pointed at the sparkling sea in the distance. How much is seafood worth now? Just casually catch a few groupers and mackerel a day, and the money you make is more than 3 months of typing in a cubicle. Recently, a boat captain from Jiangsu and Zhejiang caught 4,000 pounds of wild yellow croaker in one net and sold it for 10 million. The sea isn't stingy. It depends on whether you know how to harvest. Brother Yang. He quickly waved his hand. Seafood is expensive. That's true, but there really aren't many fish left in the sea. The old master in our village who has been sailing for 30 years casts 10 nets and doesn't even catch 3 live ones. Let alone a land-based fisherman like you who just graduated. The whole village is either delivering food or live streaming, or raising fish and processing dried goods. Only you, holding a fishing rod, say you want to revitalize the fishery? He spread his hands, his face saying you're too absurd. I laughed back, looking at him sideways. What? Elang, you think your brother Yang can't even handle a fishing net? Huh. He immediately let out a goose-like laugh. You get full marks on exams, I admire that, but fishing? Come on. Not to mention comparing with old fishermen. If we go out on the same boat, you'd have to burn incense for the fish to get them to bite. Oh. I raised an eyebrow, slowly pulled out the bulging woven bag from behind, and shook it in front of him. Then open your eyes wide and see what's inside. What is it? He was too excited to notice earlier, crouched down and pulled open the bag. Then he froze. Holy cow. Brother Yang, where did you get this seafood wholesale? Oh my god. All big groupers. How much is this worth? Damn, they're still moving. The live fish in the bag were jumping, tails splashing water droplets, gills opening and closing. About 20 fish. 3 large groupers with gray-white spots were the most eye-catching, their bellies shining with oily green light. Now wild groupers. Half a caddy sells for at least 300. These 3 together weigh almost 10 caddies, plus the mixed fish, worth 4 or 5,000 at least. Then he looked at the 3 fishing rods still dripping water on my shoulder, and Alang's brain clicked. Did he really just go fishing? And emptied the fish nest? But who fishes like they're buying wholesale? Brother Yang. He rubbed his eyes. These fish were really caught with 1 line, 1 hook, 1 bucket of bait? What else? I grinned, deliberately patting the fish bag. Stolen from the Fishery Bureau? All right, Brother Yang is amazing. He gave a thumbs up, but his tone was skeptical. But I think you just got lucky. 1 cast straight into a fish school's lair. Pure luck. I rolled my eyes, too lazy to respond. With the fish attracting spirit and the super Neptune system, from now on, casting nets and rods will bring in bountiful harvests. As for proving people wrong, no rush, take it slow. Forget this. I waved my hand. How many years has it been since we had a good drink together? Tonight at my place, plenty. Pick the 2 biggest groupers and stew a thick white fish soup. The fish from our fishing village, freshly caught and cooked, that's real freshness. I've been craving this taste for 3 years. Brother Yang, the fish could still be sold. If left overnight, they'll turn belly up. Ailing said urgently. Sell? Sell what? I waved my hand and said with a smile. Isn't fish cooked on our own stove delicious? Why must we exchange it for money? Kidding. The fridge can hold it, the stomach can eat it, and the mood is even better. Tomorrow, I'll get the fishing boat, long lines, and fixed nets all set up, officially become a fisherman, and then make money steadily. But this is worth several thousand. Yi Hailing muttered softly. All cooked. Isn't that too wasteful? Keep 2 for a taste, sell the rest. Not a single one left. If you catch fish yourself and push them away, that's not being diligent. That's stupid. Hurry home. Take a shower. Bring 2 cases of ice-cold beer. Tonight we drink until we're drunk. All right, whatever Brother Yang says. Yi Hailing shrugged and stopped persuading. Anyway, the fish are on Yi Yang's stove, and the mouth is on his own face. Let him do as he pleases. The 2 leaned on the dock railing and chatted about village trivialities for a while, until the sunset was about to sink into the horizon. Then they smiled and turned to go home. When Yi Yang pushed open the courtyard gate, the clock on the wall was pointing exactly at 6:30. His stomach growled right on time. Mealtime. He quickly took a shower, then picked out a few good fish from the bag. 2 red groupers, 1 rockfish, and 1 red eel. Although he couldn't afford seafood in the big city, his cooking skills hadn't been abandoned. He had watched hundreds of chef videos on Bilibili, mastering steaming, braising, and soup making, with heat controls steadier than a cafeteria chef. Red grouper meat is tender with few bones, steamed with water and drizzled with soy sauce. The aroma is mouth-watering. The rockfish is fried until golden on both sides, then boiled in water to make a milky white fish soup. The fresh aroma hits you. The red eel is cut into pieces and braised, glossy with sauce, melts in your mouth. Old fishermen say this fish makes men's legs strong and women's complexion good. For 2 people, 2 dishes and 1 soup is just right. With pots and pans clanging, in less than an hour, 3 hearty dishes were on the stove. Just as he lifted the lid, a familiar shout came from outside the yard. "Brother Yang, the beer is here." Yi Hailing was carrying a case of Tsingtao pure draft beer, and in the other hand, a plate of garlic-roasted oysters, the shells sizzling with oil, the fragrance wafting straight into the kitchen. When the food was set on the table, it was almost 8 o'clock. Under the peach tree in the backyard, the bluestone round table was wiped clean, moonlight filtering through the peach blossoms, casting dappled shadows. The 2 sat facing each other, clinking ice-cold beer bottles with a crisp sound. "Brother Yang, welcome home. Cheers. Cheers." He tilted his head back and gulped down a big mouthful of beer, the malt aroma mixing with the sea breeze, a slight bitterness on the tip of the tongue, followed by sweetness. Although they hadn't drunk together for 10 years, once they started talking, it was just like the old days when they chased crabs bare-bottomed. Yi Yang leaned back in the bamboo chair, chewing on the sweet fish, listening to the sound of the waves. Smelling the peach blossom fragrance, sitting beside a brother he had grown up with, who had dug bird nests with him since they were in diapers. Tonight, he didn't have to think about anything, didn't have to rush anything. Even his breathing unconsciously slowed down. So awesome. The next day, at 8 o'clock sharp, Yi Yang let out a long yawn, threw off the covers, sat up, and stepped barefoot onto the floor. With a swish, he pulled open the curtains and walked to the balcony in a few steps. Before him lay seawater bathed in morning glow, layers of waves rolling in one after another, sparkling with fine golden light. By the small dock in the distance, fishing boats were gradually casting off their ropes. Fisherwomen were shouting loudly on the shore for their children to come back for meals, while grandpas were squatting under banyan trees mending nets, and wisps of cooking smoke gently drifted in the air. This feeling was so much better than back in the big city, wrapped in a blanket in a shared apartment eating cold steamed buns. Oh my, if I had known coming back to the village was so pleasant, why did I bother messing around in the city? Look at our big seaside house, spacious, bright, quiet, and comfortable. Open the window and you can see the sea. How comfortable. And then think about that partitioned room in Magic City, barely 10 square meters, with only half a leg space between the bed and the toilet, and you have to be careful just to turn around. It's simply incomparable to hear. But that said, since heaven has given me a system to enjoy fishing, I might as well become the most impressive, carefree, and decisive fishing expert. As soon as he finished speaking, he couldn't help clenching his fists and waving them a couple of times, as if he could already see himself standing proudly at the bow, the sea breeze blowing his clothes, and spray splashing on his face. He finished brushing his teeth and washing his face in just 3 minutes. Then he went downstairs, picked up a steaming bowl of shrimp congee, slurped it all down, wiped his mouth, and hurried out. He had a clear goal: to go into town to buy a boat, fishing nets, and hooks, and officially start his fisherman career. Over the years, with the booming tourism in Sanya, small places like Bailang Village, which were almost overlooked on the map, now have bus service and paved roads. At the village entrance, a red-painted bus stop sign sees a bus every 20 minutes, steadily heading to the city. Yi Yang stood by the bus stop, and before he could finish one cigarette, the bus screeched to a halt right at his feet. Half an hour later, he got off, took out his phone, and called a ride-hailing car, heading straight to a well-known old fishing tackle street in the city. The entire street was filled with fishing-related items. Iron shells, hemp ropes, and iron hooks were everywhere. Boat shops, net stores, and accessory stalls lined up one after another. Each shop had fishing flags hanging at the entrance, and the windows displayed brand-new boat models, bundles of nylon nets, and shiny steel longline hooks. Yi Yang walked and looked around. After just a few steps, he was drawn to a spacious shop. Neatly arranged on the ground in front of the door were 3 shiny silver boat hulls. Like several big silver fish just out of the sea, quietly waiting for engines to be installed before heading out. The structure of these boats was very simple, a hull plus a motor, enough for sailing and fishing. Young man, looking for a boat. The owner leaned out from behind the counter, his apron stained with oil, a big smile on his face, eyes squinting into slits. Yes, I want to pick one. Yeong nodded. The hulls come in 3 grades. 8 meters for 50,000, 6 meters for 40,000, and 5 meters for 30,000. What about the motors? Yamaha's new model, 35,000 each, powerful and fuel efficient. All right, show me. The owner immediately led him to inspect the boats. Yeong skillfully ran his hand along the edge, stepped on the deck to feel it, and leaned in to examine the engine nameplate closely. In just over 10 minutes, he made his decision. Buy an 8-meter hull with 2 Yamaha motors. Why 2 motors? First, speed. A single motor can reach up to 25 knots, while 2 motors can boost the speed to 35 knots. Catching the early tide, grabbing good spots, and chasing fish schools all depend on this extra speed. Second, more stability. If a mechanical failure really occurs, if one motor breaks down, the other can still ensure the boat returns safely. After all, life is more important than fish. You can't gamble with luck. Of course, this came at a cost, an extra 35,000, bringing the total to 120,000. Fortunately, Yeong haggled with the owner, bargaining down by 10,000, and finally paid exactly 110,000. Luckily, the savings he had accumulated while working in Magic City hadn't been used for anything else, and the number in his bank card was enough to cover this expense. The payment went through smoothly via QR code. The owner noted the delivery address and assured him, "Don't worry, I'll deliver it to Bailang Pier before noon, and the engines will be tuned up." They added each other on WeChat, and then Yeong left the shop. 10 minutes later, he turned into the neighboring Haixing fishing tackle shop. After a quick scan, he directly picked out 4 drift nets of different sizes, 2 portable oxygen pumps, 2 large baskets of steel longline hooks, plus several landing nets, float boxes, waterproof tape, and so on, everything he needed. The owner patted his chest and promised, "All delivered before noon, and I'll even waive the shipping fee." With the boat bought and tools ready, Yeong felt much more at ease. But he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he strolled leisurely through the old neighborhood. He gently touched the crooked banyan tree at the elementary school gate, bought an ice pop, sat under the arcade, and slowly licked it, watching the familiar street scenes pass by. When he had savored enough of his nostalgia, he hailed a returning car and, after a bumpy ride, arrived back at the fishing village. It was just past 2 in the afternoon. Yeong woke up from a sweet nap, feeling refreshed. He picked up the bait he had prepared earlier, bait that had been thoroughly soaked in fish-attracting spirit, giving off a uniquely enticing aroma. He quickly headed toward the fishing village pier. The fishing boat, nets, longline hooks, and other gear ordered in the morning were all piled up by the pier, still unopened. Normally, going out to sea at this time wasn't wise. The sun was already tilting west, the water temperature was unstable, and fish were mostly inactive. However, Yeong couldn't contain his curiosity, eager to test just how miraculous the fish-attracting spirit really was. So he quickly filled 2 buckets with bait, nimbly boarded the boat, and prepared for a big haul. Arriving at the pier, he leaped onto the brand-new small, iron-hulled boat in 2 or 3 steps. An 8-meter boat might sound small, but it actually had considerable space. Most fishermen in the village used this type of boat for setting nets and fixed-point fishing. "Old buddy, I emptied my savings to bring you home, so don't let me return empty-handed." Yeong patted the gunnel and said with a smile. He had graduated just over a year ago, and although his salary wasn't low, expenses like rent, food, and equipment had money flowing out like water, leaving him with only about 100,000 in total. And this boat alone cost him 110,000, nearly draining his savings. But he wasn't worried. After all, he had the system, so he felt confident. Just by casting nets and hauling hooks, he was sure he could make a fortune. Put. The engine started smoothly on the first try. The 2 high-horsepower motors roared. The bow cut through the sea, leaving a long white wake. The boat sped forward. Before long, Yeong sailed into a sea area he rarely visited. The seabed here was covered with dense reefs, like sharp fangs protruding from the ocean floor. In such a place, once a net is cast, it's almost certainly doomed. Getting snagged, torn, or shredded into strips happens in an instant. Larger boats dare not approach, as a slight mistake could cause grounding. And even if you lose your shirt, it might not cover the repair costs. For this very reason, it has become a haven for fish, making it an ideal spot for longline hooks. Yi steadily stopped the boat at the edge of the reef area, squinted to observe the wind direction, checked the patterns of the swells, and finally chose a zone with relatively gentle currents and many eddies. Once the spot was determined, he got to work immediately, baiting, attaching hooks, and casting lines, a series of smooth, fluid motions. What is a long line? Simply put, it's a main rope with a long string of small ropes attached, each small rope ending with a lead weight and a hook. It's similar to rod fishing in principle, but on a much larger scale. His 2 baskets of long lines were over 300 meters long, densely packed, with 500 hooks. Under normal circumstances, catching 30 to 50 fish with 500 hooks would be considered quite lucky. If luck is bad, catching a dozen is already hard. But Yi was different. He had the fish-attracting spirit, like having a cheat code. Earlier, with a single rod, he had crazily caught over 30 fish in half an hour. This time, with 500 hooks in the water at once, catching 100 fish was probably just the baseline. Of course, it also depended on how abundant the fish were in this sea area. If there were hardly any fish swimming here, even the fish-attracting spirit would be useless. After all, no matter how skilled the chef, without ingredients, they cannot make a delicious meal. These 500 hooks all relied on Yi alone to manually bait, soak in fish-attracting spirit, and then personally cast into the sea. After a flurry of work, sweat kept rolling down, and his shoulders ached, but he finally threw the last hook into the water. After the hooks were in the water, the next step was to wait. Ordinary fishermen usually have to wait 2 to 3 hours, afraid of pulling in too early and missing the time when fish take the hook. Yi didn't want to spend that much time. The bait he soaked in fish-attracting spirit had a strong smell that attracted fish very quickly. If there were fish nearby, they could be attracted within 10 minutes. If there were no fish, even sitting until dark would be futile. So he only waited a full hour and then decided to return and retrieve the hooks. As soon as the boat returned to the position of the first basket of hooks, he saw the buoy floating on the water, quickly used a hook pole to probe, and swooped it onto the boat. Then he tightly grasped the main line, shouted "Hey yo," and began to pull it up at a steady pace. After pulling just a few meters, he felt something was off with the feel. The line was unusually heavy, with a strong force pulling downward, and his wrist began to ache. This situation was likely that the hook had snagged on a reef. No way. The first hook hit a rock. He muttered softly, tensed his arm, gritted his teeth, and pulled hard. The main rope emerged from the water section by section, and the first hook was about to surface. Suddenly, the whole line plunged downward with a thud. Whoa, good heavens. The first hook had a solid bite. This weight, it must be a big one. Yi's eyes lit up immediately, and he quickly grabbed the reel and spun it rapidly. As expected, the first fishing line had just been pulled out of the water. Splash! A plump tiger grouper leaped out of the sea, vigorously flicking its tail and splashing water straight onto Yi's face. This fish weighed at least 3 or 4 G'n. Its body had bright and dense yellow-black stripes, just like wearing a tiger skin coat. An experienced old fisherman would surely have his eyes light up. Tiger grouper has thick flesh, few bones, and delicious taste. The key point is the high price. In the current market, fresh wild tiger grouper costs at least 350 yuan per G'n, and the bigger the fish, the higher the price offered by the buying boss. Just this one fish could easily sell for 1,800 or even 2,000 yuan, no exaggeration. Yi grinned widely, his heart sweet as if he had eaten honey. This was only the first hook, and he had already made a small profit. There were still 499 hooks left. If all 500 hooks were pulled up, how much money would he make? Probably too much to count. Moreover, this joy wasn't just about the money. Just like a hunter hearing the long cry of a mountain eagle, or a hound racing along the trail of prey. For a fisherman, the most exhilarating moment is when he pulls the fishing line, and suddenly feels a tight force on the line. A fish has taken the hook. He quickly grabbed a net, and in no time scooped that tiger grouper into the boat. Then, he casually pulled out scissors, and with a click, cut the hook line, and the fish slid directly into the live well. Why bother to unhook it? The key to retrieving a long line is speed. If one hook is half a second slow, you might miss the chance of 10 fish biting. After handling this fish, he immediately started on the second hook. As soon as he pulled up, he felt a heavy tug at his elbow. Yi raised an eyebrow and said excitedly, "Here it comes." Pulling the long line, you can judge the situation by feel. An empty hook slides lightly. Snagging on a reef gives a stiff, stuck feeling, and when a fish bites, it's a flexible, jerking elasticity, like holding a small loach in your palm, jumping and lively. The line got closer and closer, and the water surface exploded with a splash. Another fish slapped onto the deck. Still a grouper, but this time a different variety. The whole body was bright red, as if dyed with rouge, and the scales shimmered with a golden luster under the sunlight. This is a coral trout, and moreover, the most popular red coral trout. Coral trout come in several colors. Light pink like sunset, orange-yellow like mango, but the most sought after is always this fiery red. Now the market price is soaring. Wild red coral trout cannot be bought for less than 800 yuan per gene. Awesome. Yiyang couldn't help laughing out loud, slapping his thigh in excitement. Just this one fish, at least 3,000 yuan, guaranteed. Having caught 2 precious fish in a row, Yiyang was full of energy, as if injected with chicken blood. Without even taking a breath, he reached for the 3rd hook. Next, Yiyang's laughter never stopped. After retrieving 50 hooks, 100 hooks, 200 hooks, almost every 10 hooks, 8 had fish on them. An 80% catch rate? If other boat captains heard this, they would be stunned. They would be grateful and burn incense if they caught 7 or 8 fish from 100 hooks. Even more astonishing was that not only were there many fish, but they were all high quality. Over 80% were members of the grouper family: black mouse grouper, round pebble grouper, shiny green grouper, red coral trout, purple pink red grouper. Actually, thinking about it, it's not surprising. The name grouper comes from their habit of dwelling among rocks. They naturally love to hide in rock crevices, seeking cool gaps. This area of reefs was as dense as a honeycomb, and who knows how many groupers were hiding below. Once the bait soaked in fish-attracting spirits sank into the crevices, those old residents couldn't resist. When the last longline hook was thrown onto the deck with a splash, Yiyang finally understood. No wonder the main line had pulled his arms sore at the beginning. It wasn't snagged on rocks. It was full of fish. 500 hooks had caught nearly 400 fish. And every fish was plump, not a single skinny one, all starting from one gene, with the big ones as thick as a child's arm. With so many fish crowded together, the live well quickly became too full. Bang! The lid almost flew off from the fish pushing. Fortunately, Yiyang had prepared. A super large blue bucket lay across the stern, with 2 oxygen pumps bubbling away, sending up dazzling white splashes. The fish that couldn't fit were all transferred to the bucket, with oxygen tubes inserted, and the fish remained lively, flicking their tails and stirring up breezes. After finishing the work, the sky gradually turned orange-pink. Yiyang wiped his sweat, stepped into the driver's seat, and started the motor. Put. The boat's stern left a trail of white foam, steadily heading toward the dock. Just over an hour later, Yiyang drove the new twin-engine fishing boat and headed briskly toward Minghua Seafood Wharf. This place was the busiest seafood distribution center in Sanya. When famous large boats from the city dock, over 80% of the live fish and fresh shrimp they catch are transported here. Even folks from surrounding towns and fishing villages often carry loads or push carts, bringing the day's catch to set up stalls here. Simply put, almost all seafood trade in Sanya happens here, from landing, weighing, to transaction. Yiyang made this trip specifically for the boatloads of lively large groupers. These were rare and precious, and selling them at the big dock meant no worry about competition and no fear of not getting a good price. As soon as the boat stopped steadily at the berth, 4 or 5 fishmongers rushed over from the shore and surrounded the boat. This scene was very common. At the dock, fishmongers are like hunters waiting for prey, specifically watching for docking fishing boats. As soon as any boat shows signs of movement, they run faster than anyone to greet and ask, "How's the catch today? Got any good stuff?" These few were no different. Seeing Yiyang drop anchor, they immediately rushed over, grinning from ear to ear, and greeted him. "Bro, just back from hauling nets?" Yiyang looked up at them and smiled. "Yeah, I'm back." Since they greeted him with smiles, he didn't put on airs. After all, he was there to sell fish, and being polite never hurt. One middle-aged man in a blue vest immediately struck up a conversation. "Bro, how was your luck today? How many fish did you catch?" Yiyang smiled slightly. "Not many, just a few hundred." The blue-vested man was delighted. "Whoa, a few hundred? Awesome. What kind of fish did you catch? Are they big?" "A mixed variety, all sizes, every one lively and jumping." "Great. Bro, just sell them all to me, old Zhang. I've been working this dock for over a decade. Fairness is something my regulars all know." He thumped his chest, laughing with crow's feet at the corners of his eyes. As soon as he said that, a few others immediately shouted, "Oh, come on, old Zhang. You sure can brag. You're fair, so are we swindlers. Stop your nonsense. Old Li, am the honest one. Haha, move aside. I, Old Wang, have never gone against my conscience. Hearing the chatter, Yiyang waved his hand with a smile. Uncles, don't rush to grab. Come aboard and see the goods first. As long as the price is right, who wouldn't sell to anyone? All right. Hearing this, several people scrambled onto the boat and headed straight for the live well and the big iron barrel. They peered inside. Wow. The tank was full of live fish tumbling around, silver scales glittering. The big barrel was packed to the brim with dark green and black giant grouper, as thick as a fist, whipping their tails against the barrel walls with a cracking sound. The few were stunned on the spot, their eyes nearly popping out. Oh my God! So many giant groupers. Among them, the one calling himself Old Li came to his senses first, grabbing Yi Yang's arm. Bro, were these fish caught in the wild sea or raised in ponds? Name your price, I'll pay right now. Caught in the wild sea, Yi Yang nodded. Just hooked with a long line. Any sharp I can tell. Wild. That's fantastic. Old Li rubbed his hands excitedly, thinking, if I snag this, the profit alone would be enough to buy a used pickup truck. The others weren't about to back down. They crowded around, bidding and raising prices, patting their chests to guarantee prompt payment. After all, in the current market, high-end restaurants specifically order live grouper, and it sells out as soon as it hits the market. No room for haggling. First come, first served. Latecomers get nothing. Getting it early means making money early. Next, a lively scene unfolded. Young man, I'll take all these coral groupers at 660 a caddy, deal? Young man, I'll take all the red groupers. 350 a caddy, a fair price, no cheating. Young man, I'll bid 580 a caddy for the humpback grouper. As the shouts rose, fishmongers wandering in the distance and bosses carrying bags to check out the goods all came running over. The crowd grew larger, and the dock buzzed like a boiling pot. As soon as they saw the lively wild giant grouper in Yi Yang's hold, the newly arrived fishmongers and seafood bosses erupted, scrambling to push forward. They shouted at the top of their lungs, faces flushed red, arms raised high, as if reaching for the sky. However, as the price climbed higher, fewer people remained in the bidding. When the price reached 800 or 900 and above, only a handful were still raising their hands. This indicated that the market ceiling was nearly reached. Adding more would leave little profit margin and risk getting stuck with the goods. After all, wild grouper fetches a high price alive, but once dead, the price halves. Raising them costs labor, electricity, and ice, with great risk. Yi Yang leaned against the gunwale, chewing on a blade of grass, and waited quietly for about half a minute. Seeing no one else raise the bid, he was about to nod and sell at the highest offer. Just then, the crowd parted like a tide, and a young man in a light gray shirt with silver-rimmed glasses walked over unhurriedly, followed by two young men carrying bags, standing there like two guardian deities. The fishmongers deflated like punctured balloons at the sight of him. Oh no, young Master Chen came in person? That's it. We've been shouting for nothing. The good stuff is already his. Who can compete with him? The young man stepped onto the boat in a few strides, crouched down, lifted the lid of the live well, glanced inside. His eyes lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. Then he stood up and said directly, Bro, you must be the boat owner, right? How about this? I'll take all these groupers. On top of the highest bid just now, I'll add another 20%. What do you say? As soon as he said that, the crowd burst into uproar. Damn, really adding 20%? The red grouper was already at 920, so after the increase, that's over 1,100 a caddy. He's the crown prince of Wanxian restaurant, with over a dozen high-end restaurants and tens of millions invested in new fisheries. Impressive, right? No kidding. Our little assets don't even amount to a fraction of his. Sure enough, after young Master Chen's offer, the fishmongers who had been bidding just waved their hands and sighed helplessly, giving up entirely. When a big shot appears, the small vendors automatically bow out. Yi Yang heard this, the corners of his mouth lifting, almost laughing out loud. This wasn't negotiating business. It was practically handing him money. He had been ready to close the deal, and then the other party generously raised the price by 20%. This was a sure profit without having to haggle. So comfortable. Deal. Since Boss Chun is so straightforward, all these groupers are yours. Yi Yang agreed with a smile. Haha. Bro, you're really straightforward. Young Master Chen laughed happily too, patting him on the shoulder. Then he immediately called his two assistants. Hurry up and weigh, sort, and record. Move it. The three worked as smoothly as an assembly line. In less than 20 minutes, All 128 groupers were counted without a miss. The tally, 128 fish. Total price, 65,800 yuan. Average price per fish, 514 yuan. After the accounts were settled, young Master Chen took out his phone, and with a beep, the transfer was successful. Then he made a call, and within 5 minutes, a refrigerated truck pulled up to the dock. As the truck door opened, cold air rushed out, and the staff quickly packed and sealed the fish one by one. Before getting into the truck, young Master Chen pulled a business card from his inner suit pocket and handed it to Yang. Bro, leave me your contact info. If you have good stuff in the future, I'll give you a guaranteed floor price. No losses for you. Yang took the card without hesitation and nodded in agreement. In fact, he knew very well, with his super Neptune system, good things would keep coming. This generous and reliable buyer was just the pillow handed to him when he was dozing off. Young Master Chen bought all the wild, large groupers. Yang's boat still had plenty of other seafood, like sea bass, black sea bream, rock bream, barracuda, and more, a mixed lot. But each was plump and lively. Although these fish weren't as precious as grouper, they were abundant and in good condition, so the fishmongers were eager to get them. So Yang distributed this batch to the few regular customers who had bid most decisively earlier. After tallying up, the miscellaneous sales totaled over 8,000 yuan. Adding the income from the groupers, the final account was clear. On his first trip out to sea, relying on just a few long lines and spending a day in nearby waters, he had netted 73,000 yuan. The money came so fast it was dizzying. Other fishermen in the village, working hard from dawn to dusk all year, earned at most around 100,000. But Yang had made 70,000 in a single day. Both cast nets to catch fish, but the gap is bigger than the waves. Yet on second thought, it's no surprise. He has a secret weapon. With the magical fish attractor and the Super Sea King system, catching fish is as steady, accurate, and efficient as ordering dishes in a restaurant. By the way, fishermen don't pay taxes on their sales. That means whatever Yang catches from now on, he'll earn in cold, hard cash. Unlike some internet celebrities who go to great lengths to avoid taxes and end up ruined. Yang knows this well and is overjoyed, looking forward to his future as a fisherman. He just bought a small boat and did some simple hooking near the shore, and already he's made so much. If he ever gets a 1,000-ton ocean-going vessel and sails into the vast sea, money will pour in, cash flooding the cabin like a tide. Saying he'll get rich quick isn't bragging. It feels like it's about to happen. After selling the fish, Yang didn't rush to leave. He docked the boat steadily, then ran ashore, hailed a ride-hailing car, and headed straight to the city. After sleeping at home last night, he realized the fridge was like an antique. The air conditioner roared like a tractor, the washing machine shook violently, and even the TV was an old model thick enough to sit on. The house was missing a lot of things: toothpaste unopened, bedding yellowed with age, and kitchenware not even a full set. Since he decided to settle in the fishing village, he might as well live comfortably. First, replace the appliances. The house can wait for a professional designer to tear down and renovate. From wall colors and lighting layout to storage space planning, everything should be tailored to his habits for a cozy living. Of course, there's no rush for renovation. Pick an auspicious day and take it slow. Soon, the car stopped at the city's largest appliance mall. With over 70,000 yuan freshly earned in his pocket, everything seemed worth it. He headed straight for the high-end section, a double-door flagship fridge, a silent inverter air conditioner, a washing machine with a drying function, a computer with a top-tier graphics card, and a 100-inch OLED TV. After a full shopping spree, he swiped his card without a flinch. The final bill, 52,800 yuan, almost all of today's earnings. The store promised on the spot, delivery in batches tomorrow, installation and setup in one go, and even a detailed explanation of the manuals. With the appliances sorted, Yang immediately moved on. He took a cab to the old street where he bought the fishing boat yesterday. This time, he wasn't looking at boats but stocking up on a tool: crab pots. Why specifically these? Because the fish attractor is most effective with bait to lure fish and crabs. Long lines need bait, traps need bait, and crab pots are no exception. As long as the bait is soaked long enough, fish and crabs will swarm in like a bustling market. At the shop on the street corner, a deal was struck in 3 minutes. Buy 60 crab pots, packed in 3 groups. Without a word, the shop owner drove a small truck with Yang to Mingwest Seafood Dock. They rolled up their sleeves and huffed as they loaded all the pots onto the boat. The boat started and sailed into the evening breeze. About an hour later, as the sun slanted past the hill, Not yet fully set, Yiyang steered the boat to a new reef area. After hauling in a basket full of large groupers at another reef area that afternoon, he instantly fell in love with this terrain. Lots of rock crevices, active currents, hiding and gathering fish, a natural fish haven. This time, the crab pots would be placed here. As soon as the boat stopped, he got to work. 60 pots, each with a bait box. Yiyang crouched on the deck, opening each bait box, filling it with bait, and sealing it tightly. He used the pre-soaked bait, already prepared in large buckets, with more than half left over from the long lines. Perfect for the job. He had full confidence in the bait. Soaked long enough, fully absorbed, the aroma had permeated the bait, and fish and crabs would surely fight over it. 60 large pots, 60 bait boxes, all done by himself. Was it tiring? Of course. But thinking about tomorrow morning when he hauls them in. Each pot bulging and swaying, crabs spilling out when the lid is lifted. Yiyang couldn't help but grin, and his hands moved even faster. Yiyang worked for a full half-hour to fill all 60 bait boxes. As soon as he finished, he grabbed 3 strings of 60 crab pots and, with a strong swing, threw them all into that reef area. Actually, crab pots are similar to long lines. A thick main line leads, with many branch lines tied densely, each ending in a crab pot. Retrieval is easy. Just pull the main line, and the whole string comes up, not one left behind. The only difference is that the line for crab pots is thicker and more durable. After all, crab pots are heavy. With iron frames and cement bases filled with stones, if the line were too thin, it might snap as soon as it's dropped. Soon, Yiyang placed the 3 groups of crab pots in 3 spots: the eastern reef mouth, the western shallow depression, and the southern channel bend. Now just wait one night, and haul them in tomorrow morning to see how many greedy fish, shrimp, and crabs have been lured by the bait, barged into the pots, and delivered themselves. Yiyang was already overjoyed. The fish attractor was truly effective, thick as syrup, with a fragrance so rich it seemed to bend in the air, even tinging the seawater with a faint golden halo. As long as there are living, swimming creatures in this sea, smelling this scent, they'll definitely crawl into the pots. Heh, tomorrow morning, it's time to open the blind boxes. He grinned, brushed off the bait residue from his hands, started the boat, and turned the bow toward home. Yiyang stepped through the door at 8:30 in the evening. The sky was completely dark, and every house in the fishing village glowed with warm yellow lights, like scattered stars along the coast. He had been running all day, his legs trembling, and collapsed onto the sofa as soon as he entered, too exhausted to move a finger, let alone cook dinner. Earlier that afternoon, Yi Hailang had sent word. His parents, hearing that Yiyang had returned to the village, insisted on inviting him for dinner. Braised and steamed fish were ready. But Yiyang had to go out to sea, so he smiled and agreed. Another day, for sure. After lying on the sofa for a while and regaining some strength, he slowly shuffled into the kitchen, grabbed a lively grouper, rinsed it, laid ginger shreds on the plate, and steamed it on high heat for 10 minutes. Dinner was done. After eating, he took a hot shower and shuffled upstairs in slippers. Today was his first day as a fisherman. On the first day, he earned over 70,000 from inshore long lines. A perfect start, beyond imagination. With the Super Sea King system, Yiyang felt that the days ahead wouldn't be about toiling under the sun and wind, but rather the sea breeze blowing and money rolling in. Thinking of the 60 crab pots he just set, he couldn't help but smile. Maybe right now, a bunch of crabs are squeezing in sideways, small fish swimming in through the mesh, shrimp lining up to dive in, all pouring into the pots. When he opens the lids tomorrow morning, how many baskets will he haul up? And how much money will that bring? Could it be even more than today's longline catch? Heh, I wish it were morning already. Lying on the pillow, he squinted with a silly grin, laughing until he drifted off. His breathing gradually lightened, and his dreams were full of surging waves and silver fish scales clattering into buckets. The next morning, as soon as the sun showed half of its red face above the sea surface, the sea seemed to be coated with crushed gold. Around 9 o'clock, Yiyang was dreaming of standing on a gold mountain casting a net when his phone suddenly rang wildly. Who could that be? Even if it's urgent, look at the time. He sat up abruptly, his hair sticking up like a bird's nest, rubbing his eyes and reaching for the phone on the bedside table. The screen lit up, showing a video call with the name, Yi Xiaoyu. His initial morning grumpiness vanished without a trace. He couldn't break his persona as a doting brother, especially for his lively little sister who wore a ponytail, showed her little tiger teeth when smiling, and walked as if she were bouncing on springs. He immediately answered the call. The camera lit up, revealing a fresh and neat girl with a ponytail, fair and translucent skin, bright black eyes, and a few freckles on the tip of her nose. She looked like a freshly peeled lychee, dewy and sweet. If she were in college, she wouldn't just be the department belle. She'd be a top candidate for campus belle. She was Yi Yang's little sister, Yi Xiaoyu. Although they weren't blood-related, Yi Xiaoyu was adopted by Yi Yang's mother from her cousin's family. Yi Yang had carried her to school since childhood, secretly hid snacks for her, and even taught a bully a lesson in high school. Their bond was deeper than that of biological siblings. Brother. In the video, seeing Yi Yang still in pajamas lounging in bed, she immediately covered her mouth and laughed. Lazy pig turned into a goblin? The sun is already shining on your butt. It's Friday. Aren't you supposed to be clocking in at the factory? Yi Yang almost burst out laughing at her words. But he didn't want to reveal his whereabouts yet, having just thrown his resignation letter at his boss and slipped back to his fishing village hometown. So he made up an excuse. Oh, Xiaoyu. Your brother stayed up until 2 in the morning last night, so I'm starting my vacation mode today. Yi Xiaoyu immediately slapped her forehead and said, Oh my god, did I just drag you out of bed? My bad. My bad. I need to send you a red envelope to calm your nerves. Yi Yang grinned. No need for a red envelope, but you called me early in the morning. It can't be just to confess, right? Hee, you're so smart. I actually have something to discuss with you. She tilted her head, blinked, and stuck out her tongue slightly, smiling like a little fox that had stolen honey. Oh, let's hear it. Yi Yang raised an eyebrow, thinking to himself, this girl probably got into some little trouble again. It's not a big deal. During morning reading today, my 3 roommates and I were whispering in the back of the classroom, planning where to go for the weekend. Listening to her rambling, Yi Yang immediately understood. These 3 girls grew up inland and were studying in a coastal area for the first time. Their eyes were glued to pictures of seaside hotels on their phones, and they insisted on finding a room where they could open the window and see the waves, preferably barefoot on the beach, carrying buckets to dig clams. All first-time experiences. Then Yi Xiaoyu slapped the table and said boldly, Don't book a hotel. Stay at my place. The balcony on the 3rd floor is a natural observation deck, with sea breeze and waves free to enjoy. Turn left at the village entrance and walk 200 meters, and after low tide, it's a free seafood buffet. The 3 roommates immediately raised their hands and cheered in agreement, as if their suitcase handles were already imagining poses for seaside selfies. But this was the first time Yi Xiaoyu brought friends to the fishing village since starting college, so she was a bit nervous, afraid her brother would find it noisy and messy. So she made a video call, put her face close to the camera, and looked at him expectantly, waiting for his nod. After listening to his sister's story, Yi Yang raised his hand to rub the bridge of his nose, his shoulders shaking uncontrollably. Wow, he had sneaked back to the village to take over fishing, and before he could even confess to his sister, she had already sent guests over. When she pushed open the door and saw him in slippers repairing fishing nets in the yard, TSK, that expression would be even more amusing than stepping into a puddle while beachcombing. Just imagining it made Yi Yang's mouth stretch from ear to ear. Brother, you really don't mind, do you? I boasted to them that your room is as tidy as a showroom, so they can stay without worry. And oh, these 3 senior girls are all very pretty. They'll increase the value of your room. Definitely not a loss. After saying that, she stared at the screen eagerly, as if a tail were wagging behind her. What else could Yi Yang do? His own sister bringing friends home. Of course he had to polish the courtyard door until it shone, and fill the coffee table with sunflower seeds and peanuts. You're definitely welcome. Stay as long as you like. I have no objections. Yay. I knew my brother was the most reliable. She waved her hand happily, spinning in place. Oh, brother, we'll leave after class at 4 and should be home for dinner around 6. This afternoon? All right, bro. Take your time on the road, and let me know when you arrive. Hee, don't worry, I'll stop chatting now. I need to grab seats in the classroom. Go ahead, study well. Bye. As soon as the call ended, Yi Yang burst out laughing. He had almost blurted out, Brother will be waiting for you at home, but luckily his tongue swerved in time. Thinking about the scene that would unfold in the evening, Yi Yang felt warm inside. First, he hadn't seen his little sister in a long time, and just hearing her voice made him want to ruffle her hair. Second, TSK, just imagining her pushing open the yard gate and seeing him squatting by the wall mending a fishing net, her mouth forming an O, eyes wide like brass bells, was enough to make him happy all day. Just thinking about it. He curled his lips, utterly delighted. After chatting with his sister Yi Xiaoyu, Yiyang immediately threw off the covers, got up, washed his face, and brushed his teeth, moving swiftly. After washing up, he cooked a pot of flavorful seafood porridge and wolfed it down in no time. Pushing aside the bowl, Yiyang picked up the aerator, filled an insulated box with ice, grabbed a few rolls of rope for tying cages, and headed straight to the dock. It was time to retrieve the crab cages he had set in the sea last night. Generally, old fishermen wait at least 2 or 3 days after setting cages before hauling them, because the sea creatures haven't been attracted by the bait yet and won't easily enter the cages. If you haul too early, the cages are mostly empty, and all the effort is wasted. But Yiyang didn't follow the usual rules. The bait in his cages had been soaked in fish attractant, which emits a scent that can drift half a nautical mile across the sea, specifically luring greedy creatures. As long as there were living things in that area, they would swarm into the cages upon smelling the scent, without needing a long wait. One night was enough. Moreover, leaving them too long risked someone else taking them. If someone stole his carefully placed cages, he would be devastated. Soon, Yiyang arrived at the fishing village dock. By then, the hard-working old fishermen had already set out to sea, leaving the dock quiet, with only the sound of the sea breeze hitting the shore. Yiyang jumped onto his family's small fishing boat, its blue paint slightly faded, and stepped on the gas. The engine hummed, and the boat glided lightly across the water, heading toward the reef area where he had placed the cages last night. After about an hour, the boat steadily stopped at the target sea area. "Hey, don't disappoint me." He rubbed his hands together, his eyes sparkling with excitement, as if he were about to open a red envelope halfway. The buoy was already swaying there. Yiyang drove the boat closer, threw out the hook pole, and with a click, precisely hooked the foam float. Then he pulled it up, and the main line instantly tightened. He clamped the main rope onto the small winch at the stern and pressed the switch with a snap. With a rumble, the machine emitted a low roar, and the steel wires slowly tightened. The first cage broke through the water, hanging wet in midair. Yiyang took a closer look and almost jumped with excitement. The cage was packed full. Grouper fish were twisting and splashing, eels were tangled in a slippery mess, and red flower crabs were randomly snapping their claws. The green crabs had shiny shells, while stone crabs pretended to be calm in the corner. Most eye-catching were 2 large lobsters, spanning almost half the cage horizontally, with thick legs stretched out, their claws opening and closing with a click, looking majestic. One was estimated to weigh 5 or 6 gene, the kind locals call ornate spiny lobster. This type of lobster has thick, rich meat and full roe, fetching astonishingly high market prices. For wild ones this big, a gene can easily sell for over 800 yuan. 2 of them together would net a solid 10,000 yuan. Haha, this is a huge score. Yiyang grinned, so wide his back teeth showed, mentally calculating the income, his little abacus clicking away. After laughing, he didn't stop moving and immediately went to retrieve the second cage. It was full too. As soon as the second cage was pulled out of the water, his voice shot up an octave. Although this cage didn't have lobsters, the grouper were piled up like a small mountain, and each crab was shiny and plump, with thick claws. Just picking up a few and weighing them by hand, he could tell they were high-quality ones that had feasted on seaweed. Just these fish alone would sell for at least 2 to 3,000 yuan. 2 consecutive cages of bumper harvests. Yiyang's expectations soared. The dozens of cages behind. Could they all be this good? He moved faster, the winch running non-stop, cages pulled out of the water one after another. His laughter never stopped. Out of 60 cages, over 40 were full of bounty. Large grouper too many to count. Green and red crabs piled into small mountains. Over 30 ornate spiny lobsters weighing 3 to 4 gene each were caught. And the largest lobster had its claw tips almost touching the cage top. Yiyang hummed a tune happily, the corners of his mouth lifting uncontrollably. Was this ordinary fishing and crabbing? This was getting rich. Others set cages and might not catch even a few small crabs after 3 days. But Yiyang, after just one night, all 60 cages yielded results, hauling back large catches by the basket. These grouper could fill 3 banquet tables, and the lobsters could cover an entire 8 immortal table. Why was he so good? Yiyang patted the small bottle of fish attractant in his pocket. The answer was simple, just 3 words. The scent is strong. After finishing the last cage of crabs, Yiyang wiped the sweat from his forehead and began to tally the catch. All 60 cages had to be handled by him alone, and just the quantity was enough to make one's hands and feet weak and exhausted. Not to mention those large green-shelled crabs with claws as sharp as small scissors. Just tying them up left Yiyang panting. And he couldn't be careless at all. Once out of water, crabs become irritable. If not tied up quickly, they would pinch each other, and if a claw broke, the appearance would suffer, and the price would drop significantly. For the next hour or so, he didn't stop for a moment. Opening cages, dumping the catch, sorting crabs, tying crab legs. Live fish were scooped into the live well to breathe freely. Those fish that died easily were quickly moved to the shady stern and covered with wet towels to prevent sun exposure and dehydration. He used both hands and feet, his eyes constantly watching, his back bent almost like a shrimp. When the last bucket of water was emptied and all 60 cages catches were properly stowed, he collapsed onto the deck, resting for a while, his chest heaving violently. But as soon as he looked up, he saw fishtails splashing noisily in the live well, green-shelled crabs climbing over each other in layers in the large bucket, and lobster antennae occasionally poking out. Instantly, the fatigue in his heart vanished as if cleared with a ding. This was all money. Not just money, but a sense of achievement bubbling up like soda from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Just as he recovered, he picked up the bait packs that had been soaked overnight, and with a few clicks, filled each cage's bait box with fresh bait. The aroma was so strong that even the sea breeze had to detour. After loading, he started the engine, put it in gear, and floored the throttle, heading straight for the old spot at East Reef Bay. With a splashing sound, the 60 cages sank again into the ink-blue seawater. Come haul them tomorrow morning, and they'll surely be full of top-grade goods. Making money? No need to wait long. The boat's bow cut through the waves as he sped towards Bright Moon Dock. An hour later, the bow gently bumped against the dock's floating platform. Before he even jumped off the boat, a chorus of shouts surrounded him. Yo, Brother Yi is back. Old Lee here has sharp eyes. I saw your bow's white spray from afar. I, Old Wong, have been waiting here for half a day, just hoping for this boatload of fresh catch. The few plump wild grouper Yuan caught yesterday had already spread among these fishmongers. Everyone knew that when this young man went to sea, what he brought back wasn't just a catch, it was gold bricks. As soon as his boat docked, everyone scrambled to cozy up to him. Brother Yi, sell to me. I'll pay the highest market price, plus 20 cents. Trust me, cash on the spot, not a cent less. Don't listen to them. My scale is accurate, my account's clear, and I'll treat you to good tea and snacks later. Before he even lifted the bucket lids, the fishmongers were already quarreling noisily. Yi Yang grinned and patted the gunwale, saying, What's the rush? Come up and take a look first. Today's catch is even heavier than yesterday's. As soon as he finished speaking, several heads scrambled onto the boat. Their eyes swept over the live well and then the large bucket. Wow! Oh my God! All alive! Over 30 lobsters? Their shells are as shiny as mirrors. Every green crab is fist-sized, and the swimming crab legs are longer than chopsticks. A few people were stunned, mouths slightly open, unable to close for a long time. Yesterday they could still say it was luck, but saying that today would make their faces burn. Each grouper had thick flesh and glossy scales. The lobsters were dark and shiny, antennae standing straight. The green crab shells were hard as iron, legs thick as fingers. This wasn't a coincidence. It was real skill. Someone secretly swallowed saliva, thinking, from now on, when seeing Brother Yi, they should offer a cigarette first and speak politely. Building a relationship with him was like hugging a mobile seafood warehouse. Folks, the goods are all here. If you want to buy, start bidding now. Yi Yang said with a smile, waving his hand. After the fishmongers had thoroughly inspected the fish and shrimp, he raised his voice. The crowd didn't hesitate. Instantly, they were all talking at once, competing to raise prices, their eagerness more exaggerated than grabbing red envelopes. The fiercest competition centered on the few wild adult grouper and the lively large ornate spiny lobsters. Their faces flushed red, and the bids shot up like rockets. The commotion spread like wildfire. Crab sellers, shellfish handlers, cold chain transporters at the dock, all drawn by the noise, gathered around, forming layers of onlookers. Brother Yi, for ornate spiny lobsters over 5 gene, I'll give 680 per gene. Brother Yi, for leopard coral grouper over 2 gene, 550 per gene, I'll take them all. Green crabs, 100 per gene, I'll buy as many as you have. The shouts rose and fell like a bustling market. Sea urchins, squid, grouper, lobster, prices all skyrocketed, rising so fast that even the old fishermen were stunned. Yi Yang crossed his arms, leaning against the boat's side, watching the lively scene. His heart was bursting with joy. The higher the price, the more money in his pocket. Just as the crowd was bidding fervently, it suddenly fell silent. A young man in a light gray shirt, carrying a leather bag, squeezed through the crowd. When the fishmongers recognized him, their faces fell. Oh my God, little boss Chen, why is he here again? Damn it, we've been waiting for nothing. When he shows up, there's no chance for us to get the good stuff. So annoying. He's been hanging around the dock every day lately, like he's clocking in for work. I heard Wanxian Lu opened a new branch and needs high-end ingredients daily. Of course he's diligent. Sai, why bother competing? Once he speaks, we can't even get close to the grouper and lobster. Isn't that the truth? Some sighed helplessly, others gave up outright, and a few quietly put away their bidding notebooks. However, Yi Yang's eyes lit up the moment he saw the man. Hey, here comes the generous little boss Chen again. Looks like this time, before the fish are even weighed, my wallet will be bulging. Amid the noise, Chun Zihao strode onto the fishing boat. First bent down to check the live well and several large barrels, nodding repeatedly with a look that said the trip wasn't wasted. Then he turned and walked familiarly up to Yi Yang. Patting him on the shoulder with a smile, he said, Brother Yi, didn't we agree yesterday? If you got good stuff, you'd call me directly. Why didn't you call? Yi Yang spread his hands and said with an honest smile, I really didn't mean not to call you. At sea, I was busy hauling nets, changing oxygen for the fish, and adjusting the ice chest. Once ashore, I completely forgot. If I had remembered earlier, I'd definitely have notified you first. That was true. He had indeed been so busy he was dizzy and hadn't had time to contact anyone in advance. If he had remembered, he could have sent a voice message on the way back and made extra money. Who would pass up such a good deal?